Hey everyone, this is Jordan with Food Bevy, the online community for food and beverage founders. And today I have a really cool conversation with Grant LeBeau, founder of Rickaroons. Grant, welcome. I'd love for you to jump right in. Tell us a little bit more about what the product is and the company and how you got started.
Sure. So the company is called Rickaroons because my dad's name is Rick, and the product is very coconut heavy, like a macaroon. So Rick makes macaroons. Rickaroons started out of his kitchen 8 years ago. Your classic quintessential SoCal company, starting at a farmer's market, organic, gluten free, vegan, all of those things, family owned. It's a real mouthful, honestly. um, and basically, yeah, it started as a side gig at the farmer's market, and then kind of just kept on taking baby steps to our local juice bars, coffee shops, offices, chiropractor offices, on and on until eventually pre-COVID, we were actually working with Costco doing road shows and had some pretty high hopes. But yeah, basically organic, gluten-free energy bars that actually taste good. It's like if an almond joy started doing yoga and going to the gym and drinking kale smoothies, that would be a Rickaroon.
I love that analogy. So you say your dad started it. How did you get pulled in
We started it together. It's just his
together?
recipes.
Okay.
So what I always say is basically like I've never baked a Rickaroon in my life, but I've done literally everything else for the company. Not that he hasn't. Just I also do everything else.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about how last year affected your business. I know you said you were doing Costco road shows. Was that how did that kind of play out for the rest of the year for you?
Well, that's it can be a very brief story. COVID happened, and then all road shows got canceled, and with it, a gigantic
Yeah.
portion of our revenue.
I know with Costco, right? Like you have to ramp up production and they move lots of volume. Did you have to kind of completely change how you were making it or like what those volumes looked like?
We didn't have to change the quantities that we were making. We just changed the frequency that we were making. Um, we're like most people in our industry, do not have our own production facility, so we use a co-packer who we basically send them the purchase order, and they produce 6 to 8 to due to COVID 12 weeks later. That can be really difficult to forecast, especially when you have an unforeseen global pandemic come out of nowhere and you have production scheduled. So at this point, like obviously, we're all caught up and we're adjusted to this quote unquote new normal. But as far as how things look relative to pre-COVID, they're drastically different. Yeah.
Where did you pivot your business to outside of Costco?
People keep asking me that, and I don't have a great answer. I mean, we felt like we were diversified. Uh, we had big plans for 2020. We thought well, with Costco, we had been doing the road shows for about 16 months. We had things really dialed in. They were starting to loosen the reins there. They're a pretty conservative company, so they definitely take a long time to loosen those reins. But we I think gained their trust, and so we were looking to start doing even more road shows, which you can just move a phenomenal amount of product there. Hopefully, move to being an inline item, which means you're there full time and not just for that 1 week at a time, where you kind of bring in on a wagon all your product, and then on Monday morning and then Sunday night you leave and you take it to the next location. We had worked with a lot of office snack distributors, and we felt like we had a lot of good connections that were poised for significant growth, and that industry has just been decimated because no one goes to an office anymore. So Silicon Valley, the Googles, and it's basically the Google trickle effect. Like Google started providing free food for all of their employees, so that no one had an excuse to ever leave, and then that just trickled down to all sorts of smaller companies. So that was big business, and that is just completely I don't know 90% reduced from pre-COVID levels. And then juice bars and coffee shops. That's and these are like three seemingly disparate industries. So we felt like we were diversified, but juice bars and coffee shops were in San Diego, so obviously we have some pretty heavy government imposed restrictions on what businesses can and can't do. I'm not saying I'm opposed to them on a public health standpoint. Only it's only my bank account that is
Yeah.
opposed.
No, I hear you on that. And for my business, T Squares, a similar thing happened. We were kind of diversified throughout food service channels, and the same thing happened, right? The entire channel dried up literally in
Yep.
like a week or so as everything shut down, hasn't come back. One thing that I've seen is, I don't know why, maybe it's just the beginning of the new year, but a number of brands that I'm friends with have launched in Costco just now. I'm not sure if they're doing roadshow. They're probably starting off as roadshows. Can you talk a little bit about like what you learned from that experience of working with Costco in terms of what worked really well, what didn't work, and any advice you give to other brands?
Sure. So we were absolutely in the right place at the right time. I was working a small booth at my local rock climbing gym during a competition, and a guy just happened to come by and started asking me all sorts of questions that normal consumers don't ask about, like our audits and our production capacity and turnaround time. And basically, it came out that he was a buyer at Costco, an up and coming buyer. He was a few years younger than me, and he basically he needed that next merit badge, and in order to move up in the world of his in his job progression. So it was basically he was looking for a small company to kind of shepherd through the process. And I think that I mean, it's obviously the dream to get into Costco, and I don't think we would have done it without him. So shout out to him. And it's funny, I think a lot of people think that Costco is this like big bad Walmart level bad guy. And that has not been our experience at all. We've had a really, really good experience there. Our margins have been workable and profitable. We've moved a ton of volume. We created a ton of awareness. As for advice, I don't know, be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I mean that's serendipity for you right there. That's how we found our first investor for T Squares, is by doing a demo at a Whole Food store, and they came out to us there.
Hmm.
Once you were kind of in the stores, though, like what was the roadshow experience like?
It's a grind for sure, but we had a really, really good team. I don't know how, but somehow we lucked into all of these. I'm sorry. Hold on one second.
Oh, good.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah,
Can we
so it's a grind, but you have a
can you
good
ask me that
team.
again? Yeah.
Yeah, so what was the roadshow experience like in working with Costco?
So it's definitely a grind. Um, you go through somewhere between 3 and 5,000 sample cups a day. So you're giving away a sample about every 6 to 8 seconds when things are really packed. Yeah, it's crazy, but we were really fortunate. We had an amazing team. We had we had all of these really enthusiastic vegans working for us who were just we had like two women who were getting their masters in nutrition at San Diego State. We had someone who was applying to med school. We had someone who was waiting for her results back from the California bar. We just had these like really amazing employees, and it made it a lot easier. But yeah, when we first started and we didn't know how it was going to go, and basically my family was working all day, every day at Costco, hairnet and gloves, and trying to put on the happy face for just literally 1,000 people a day. It's there's a lot to it, but it was certainly worth it for us because there just isn't anything else out there comparable to Costco as far as in-person events that can be replicated on an ongoing basis.
Anything that you would do differently next time, or advise another brand to do differently?
That's a hard question to answer because it's so dependent on like Costco basically has all of the power, right? And so I guess I would just say that if you even want a chance at Costco, you have to be very different from what currently exists. in that, like, but you just have to like have to have a very distinct competitive advantage, I think. And so for us, like Costco was looking to move to have more local representation. It was funny, they were kind of, I think they passed Whole Foods moving in opposite directions on the spectrum of focusing on local companies. So Whole
Mm,
Foods used to be very pro local, and then they've kind of moved away from that, whereas Costco is moving towards being more local. So we had all of those things that I mentioned earlier about being kind of that quintessential SoCal family owned local company. So we were doing the road shows in San Diego in our kind of in our own backyard. What we could do differently moving forward, I don't know, maybe swing for the fences maybe a little bit earlier and ask to be put into that full-time position. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we go and we ask for that. They know who we are. They know, like, they're watching the numbers. I think when they're gonna move slowly, especially for a company of our size. It's different if you're coming in and you're a Pepsi brand company or a subsidiary. You go, yeah, we can scale up and make 1 billion of these a year, no problem. Whatever levels you want, we can make that happen. For us, they're looking at us going, okay, you started your origin story includes a farmer's market. We're Costco. Are you sure you can meet all of our needs? Are you going to sell out? Are you going to be able to ramp up your staffing levels and your production levels and kind of prove your professionalism? So yeah, I felt like barring a global pandemic, I felt like we had done things pretty close to. I mean, I don't want to say perfectly, but like things were going well.
yeah, no, that's a good point there. As you look towards this year, right? So how are you planning for 2021 if you're kind of planning, and what do you hope to achieve for this year?
Yeah, great question. So it seems like every sales conversation I have, the good ones are, let's see, the bad ones result in just either no response or an exasperated response. Like, why are you even reaching out to me? The sky is falling, the world is over, we're all doomed. And I get that feeling. I mean, I can totally commiserate. And it's funny how emails now start off with like, "Hey, I hope your family's doing well and everyone is healthy and like that we're all gonna make it through this together." Like just this, I don't know, feel compelled to connect on this more human level, which I guess is good because you get to connect. But it's, obviously we all wish it was under different circumstances. As far as what we're hoping for 2021, you know, I'm hoping for a rapid uptake of of immunizations. I mean, when I hear of people pushing back on it, it's just disappointing because that's truly the only solution other than herd immunity by contracting the disease itself, right? Like and if you want businesses to come back, like, there's only one way for businesses to come back, and that's to remove all of the restrictions and to allow everyone to go about business as usual. And either you can have a bunch of people die, or everyone can take the can get the vaccine who can, and then we can go back to things being as they were, or at least close to them. And it's just, I don't know, it's just frustrating, especially when you have people who want to reopen everything, but then those same people don't want to take the vaccine, and it's like, guys, this is the solution. I, I'm I'm right there with you. Like I'm hurting, but our business is down 60%, 70% from where it was last year. And we were expecting, and that's just where we were last year, not even taking into account we were expecting 100% growth. So really we're down 80, 90% from where we thought we were going to be. So yeah, I don't know. I guess my biggest hope is not that we're going to do something magical, but just that the world does the logical thing and takes the solution pill.
Stabilizes, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
should say too, right? We're like talking on inauguration day, and I think it starts in like 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think that's one of the difficult parts about this year is there's the balance between like the hope that we can get towards some level of like end in sight. But then the uncertainty that, like you're saying, like people won't take the vaccine for some reason when the odds of like if you get if you get COVID, you're going to have a odds are you're going to have a difficult time, and some people or more people are going to die from it still than
Yeah,
anyone
it's
has from
now
the vaccine. So like,
the leading cause of death in America.
yeah, it's ridiculous, and
A
people are still
above heart
ignoring it.
disease, yeah, above cancer, above everything. The
Yeah.
leading cause, and we have the solution for it. I don't know why we haven't ramped up things. I don't wanna get too political here. I know that's
Yeah,
not the style of this podcast normally, but, yeah, I mean, hopefully things ramp up really quickly and we can, get a couple 100 million people immunized ASAP and move on from this. Obviously,
but I
going back to your last question, like, obviously we have our plans for 2021 are basically to just keep a bunch of irons in the fire and keep those relationships warm, reaching out to people. Sometimes I'll send notes being like, "Hey, I don't expect I don't expect a follow-up, or I don't expect a response. I don't expect things to have gotten better for you. We're still hurting there with you. Like we're all our boat rises and falls with the tide of the food service industry. So if I'm reaching out to you and I know if we're not doing well, then you're not doing well. Because if the cafe and juice bars and coffee shops, if they were all thriving, then so would we. And if offices were all reopened, then like we would be doing a ton of business with them. But we're not. And so instead, I'm just trying to keep all those relationships warm and basically stay on a kind of a first name basis, have those conversations, commiserate a little bit, and be like, hey, it's no problem. I'm not trying to hard sell you anything right now. All I'm saying is let's go ahead and make some plans, some soft plans so that we can line the dominoes up so that when June comes around or September or October or I don't know, 2027 and things are go back to normal, that we can actually you can just tip that domino and everything's already lined up for us to resume business and start production and meet whatever needs that those other business partners of ours have.
Yeah, and I think that's powerful because a lot of times there's an instinct of not reaching out, and those relationships grow cold. You're not really even sure, unfortunately, like who still has a job or not. But if you, like you're saying, if you reach out, you continue to even offer them anything from your perspective in terms of like insights or like what you're going through, then you can keep those relationships fresh. So I think that's powerful.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
perfect. Well, hey, I really appreciate you having on today and having on the show today. And I think, this conversation around Costco, around planning for once things reopen, uncertainty of this year is the life that we're all living. So, appreciate your insights on that. And thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's I don't know if it's fun to talk about these things, but it's nice to share them and have that shoulder to cry on sometimes.
It definitely is. Thanks.